Hello everyone and welcome to my presentation about the topic Languages as a key factor for my personal and professional development. I'm very happy to talk to you and it's really exciting to me to participate in this year's Polyglot Conference for the very first time. Before I start telling you my linguistic story, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Olga Koeva, I am 26 years old and I come originally from Bulgaria. I spent my first 18 years in my home country, where I also went to school, namely to the National Music School Lyubomir Pipkov in Sofia. My main subject there was piano. However, I've always been interested in organ music. So that's why I started studying organ at the age of 15 in parallel with the piano. My goal was to go abroad and to study church music in order to become a church organist. So in 2012, after having obtained my high school diploma, I came to Regensburg, to Germany, and began reading the bachelor's degree in sacred music at the University of Sacred Music and Musical Education. I graduated with this degree in 2016 and continued with a master's degree in organ improvisation. I really like improvising at the organ, and that's why I wanted to gain a deeper insight in this interesting area. This master's degree took 2 years and I completed my musical education in 2018. In parallel with the studies, I'm also working as a church musician or an organist in a little village here near Regensburg. So I play the organ in the weekends and also during celebrations like Easter and Christmas. I also have a tiny choir or a little group of singers, whatever, with whom I study new, a little bit unknown hymns, and then we perform them together during different services. Currently, I'm doing another study program, namely Bachelor's degree in International Relations and Management at the University of Applied Sciences in Regensburg. Of course, one of my main interests are languages. So I cannot imagine my life without languages. And that's why I'm here, you know. So languages have always been my passion. I started developing my interest for languages already during my childhood. I grew up in a bilingual environment and I spoke 2 languages in parallel without any problems, namely Russian and Bulgarian. However, I also invented my own language. Here I would like to mention that a child's language or a children's language is quite a frequent phenomenon. So when a child starts speaking, a child pronounces many combinations of sounds and creates new words and phrases that then can be considered as a language, you know. So sometimes these phrases have a meaning, sometimes not, but it's still a language. But my case was different, because I created my language at a later stage of my childhood, when I was 5 and could speak 2 languages. So every word and phrase of my language had a meaning. Furthermore, my language had a name. I called it Lithuanian. Maybe you are wondering why exactly Lithuanian and not, I don't know, Hungarian or Estonian and so on. Well, there are several reasons for that. On the one hand, in some shops of Sofia, there was some kind of cheese imported from Lithuania that I liked very much. So I was really happy when we had this Lithuanian cheese at home. On the other hand, my mom used to tell me many things about Lithuania because she had a Lithuanian friend and she visited the country several times and so on. Finally, I maybe also like the sound of the words Lithuania and Lithuanian, so that could also be a reason. Now, a little anecdote regarding my own Lithuanian. Once, my mom and I were invited to a concert where representatives from a German organization were present. So during the concert, the Germans were holding very, very long speeches and I didn't understand a word they were saying. However, I became aware of an interesting fact. When the concert was over and we went out, I said to my mom the following: "Mom, look, German is really, really similar to my Lithuanian, you know?" Then my mother was really astonished about how a brain of a 5-year-old child could analyze and do parallels between her own language, Lithuanian, and an existing one, German. So the similarity could maybe be the presence of many sh and st sounds in both languages. So it was really funny. Then we had a very, very long conversation with my mom about foreign languages, and from that moment on I wanted to study foreign languages, maybe English and German, because they sounded nice. So that was the moment of inspiration regarding foreign languages. The first time I really felt that language knowledge can open many windows to the world was when I was in school. But before talking about that, some remarks. As you maybe have noticed, I am totally blind, and this national music school where I went to in Bulgaria was just a normal school and not for the blind or for visually impaired people. I don't know how it is in your countries, but to attend a normal school in Bulgaria and to study music professionally is really a challenge for blind people. Very few books that have been used in my school were actually available in Braille. Even worse, there was and still is no single piece of music available in Braille. That's why I was relying on the help of my mom. So she was typing every single piece of music manually on this typing machine. It was accompanying me during my whole education in Bulgaria, and so I want to show you how it works. So here you can see the paper and the keys, and now I'm gonna write something, gonna type. So polyglot. So it's Polyglot Conference 2020. However, now I'm not using this machine anymore, but I utilize this Braille display. It's similar to this machine, but it's digital, so you can read and write everything in Braille, but digitally. It is essential to mention that typing of Braille scores does not only consist in typing of the notes only. There are many other symbols that have to be taken into consideration, like for example dynamics, intervals, etc. etc. That's why it was really challenging for my mom to do this. But this situation suddenly changed. I was in the 9th grade and I could speak English and German on a conversational level, so I could write emails and communicate with people orally about several subjects from their everyday lives. The knowledge of both these languages gave me the opportunity to get in touch with two really large libraries for the blind and visually impaired in Europe, namely the German Central Library for the Blind in Leipzig and the library of the RNIB in London in the UK. I rapidly became a member of these libraries and I started benefiting from their services and ordering many scores in Braille. I was really happy that I didn't need to rely on the help of my mother, and I realized how advantageous knowledge of foreign language could be and how it could facilitate the access to information. Currently, I'm a member of lots of different libraries in Europe, so I have really much access both to Braille scores, like Braille music, and to Braille literature. So I have really a great opportunity to have access to many of my favorite pieces of music. Of course, I continued studying foreign languages also when I came here to Germany. So the first language I learned here in Regensburg was Dutch. After 5 months of intensive studying of grammar and vocabulary, I understood that there actually was an opportunity to practice this language right here in Regensburg. Namely, there were so-called get-togethers for Dutch and Dutch-speaking people organized by the Dutch teacher of the university in Regensburg. These meetings are really important to me because they play really an essential role for me, because there I met a person that really is vital for my personal and professional development. So I'll never forget when I met this Dutch person for the first time. So I can never forget his reaction. So I was introduced to him by a fellow friend, and she said the following: as here is a young student and she's a musician, and he said, wow, and she's blind, wow, and she speaks very well Dutch, wow, and she's Bulgarian, wow, I really like Bulgarian folk music, he said. So from that moment on, like, this was the beginning of a really strong friendship. It turned out that he was a really amazing musician, so we had many common interests. We used to meet each other pretty often when he was living here, and we were holding many conversations about music. He had really a great collection of musical instruments, and he demonstrated me how these instruments function. So I really got familiar with many instruments that I'd never seen before. For example, I got to know something about a kalimba or auto harp or some other Chinese instruments, the names of which I cannot remember right now, but anyways. Furthermore, I did not only gain very deep insight in the variety of musical instruments, but also in the variety of the folk music in the world. Playing these instruments, this friend of mine also used to explain me the similarities and differences between the folk music in different countries of the globe, not only in Europe but also in Asia. Moreover, I also had a goal regarding the Dutch language. I wanted to take and pass an exam on B2 level, and I'm really grateful to my friend that he helped me a lot with the preparation. So he corrected many of my written words, and also we did some speaking exercises for the oral part of the exam. So yes, I really passed the exam 2 years ago, and this only thanks to my Dutch friend. So now he is living in another country, but we are still in touch. Not only he helps me with some, I don't know, linguistic or musical issues, I don't know, but also I try to contribute with something during our contact. For example, he wanted to perform a Bulgarian folk song in the country where he lives, and so I translated for him the lyrics and transcribed them from Cyrillic to Latin alphabet. So it was really helpful. So that was my experience regarding the Dutch language. Another language that I like very much and that I also learned here in Germany is Swedish. So I improved it in a similar manner as the Dutch language, so I also found out many get-togethers here where I could meet many Swedish friends and with whom I'm still communicating. There are some events that occurred related to these get-togethers, and they are really essential for my development as a musician. I would like to share with you one of these events. Once I received an email from a very nice Swedish lady who is a regular member of these get-togethers. So she was asking me if I maybe could play at a wedding service of her son, so if I could play the organ there. I was really surprised because it's really seldom when friends of mine ask me some questions of that kind. So, but yeah, I agreed with the proposal and said that I would play at the wedding service with a great pleasure. Maybe you're asking why I'm telling you about this service. Why? What's the special thing with this? Well, this was the first time I played during a service in an evangelical church. So of course, the structure of those services is really different from those of the Catholic Church, so I learned a lot from this wedding service. So it was really a nice experience. Moreover, I also have a similar goal regarding my Swedish, a similar goal as with the Dutch language. I would like to take a Swedish exam, and this friend of mine, she is still helping me a lot with my preparation for this exam. So we're talking about many subjects, and I sent her many tasks, like written tasks. So I'm really thankful that I did so much progress in Swedish. So I hope that I will achieve many linguistic results regarding my Swedish language next year, and I will pass this really difficult exam. Now let's talk a little bit about traveling. I like traveling very much, and every time I do some journeys in other countries or other cities, I try to combine the useful things that could maybe contribute to my development as a musician or a polyglot or whatever, with the things that I enjoy, like the pleasant ones, maybe visiting friends, going for walks, and seeing all the sights of a country or of a city. So good examples are my journeys to Norway, but before I talk a little more about these journeys, I would like to mention an interesting fact that is related to my experiences with learning Norwegian. So when I learned Norwegian, I got in touch by accident with a very nice lady from Norway on a forum on the internet, and we became really good friends. It turned out that she had many interests, so many common interests with me. So she likes, for example, singing, and I do this as well. And she also likes listening to my organ improvisations. So yeah, so that's why we have many of these common interests. 3 years ago, she invited me to her home city or native city of Stavanger in Norway. So I visited this city twice, and these journeys had really many events that were important for my development as a musician. So first, my friend and I got in touch with the organist of the Cathedral of Stavanger because I was really interested to play the organ there, and he invited me to participate in a service there. So I had an opportunity to play the organ in an evangelical church because the cathedral in Stavanger was evangelical. I got familiar with, of course, with the new organ and with many Norwegian nice hymns that I'm still improvising over. Furthermore, during an organ concert, I also contacted the organist of the concert hall in Stavanger, and so it turned out to be that he was an amazing organ improviser. So when he understood that I was studying organ improvisation, he suggested me to do a little course with me the next time I would come to Stavanger, and to demonstrate to me like his own improvisation style. I agreed, and it happens. It happened so. So the second time I was in Stavanger, I had this course with him, and it really helped me to enhance my knowledge and my techniques about organ improvisation, because the style of this organist is rarely taught in Germany. It's like a modern, more modern style, and reminds a little bit of a French style of improvising. So many of the methods and techniques I got as a takeaway from this organist, I still apply them in concerts and services in my church, so it was really a helpful experience. Later on, this friend of mine introduced me to another friend of hers who is an organist and is currently studying sacred music in Tromsø, in the northern part of Norway, in very, very northern part. So she became also a very good friend of mine, and she invited me to Tromsø last year. This journey was really one of the most unforgettable ones that I had in my life, because I got the opportunity to play at the organ of the famous, marvelous, grandiose Arctic Cathedral in Tromsø. It is one of the most famous sites of the city. So, you know, the acoustics and the sound of this organ is really unique, and it's a dream of every organist who is interested in Scandinavian organs to play there. So you guess what I was feeling, so what my feelings were during playing this concert. So it was really a great honor to perform for the Norwegian audience and to demonstrate them my own organ improvisations. So it was really, really exciting. Finally, I would like to mention that all these contacts with my current Norwegian friends and all these events would not have been possible without the knowledge of the Norwegian language. You know, every Norwegian, like everyone, becomes impressed when some foreigners try to speak Norwegian, but they become much more impressed when someone speaks their language fluently, you know. So, because Norwegian is really spoken only by 5 million people, if I'm not mistaken, so it's really important to them, and they're really excited to hear foreigners speaking this language. So, in my opinion, my fluency of Norwegian was really useful, not only to build some contacts, friendships and so on, and to develop professionally as a musician, but also to understand more the Norwegian culture. So I hope that I will also visit Norway in the future and will make more friends, and this like only due to the factor that I am fluent in Norwegian. Before we move on to the next part of our presentation, I would like to perform a little extract from a song. Cantinho, violão, esse amor, uma canção para fazer feliz a quem se ama. Muita calma para pensar e ter tempo para sonhar. Da janela vê seu corcovado, oh Redentor, que lindo. Quero a vida sempre assim, com você perto de mim, até o apagar da velha chama. E eu que era triste, descrente desse mundo, ao encontrar você eu conheci o que é felicidade, meu amor. This style of music is called Bossa Nova and is one of the symbols of Brazil. This song is called Corcovado and is originally performed by João Gilberto. Now I would like to share with you some experiences that I had with this style of music. So before I spoke Portuguese, I had some difficulties in understanding Bossa Nova. So first, I had no idea about the lyrics, so I didn't understand the words of the lyrics. And second, some of the complex rhythms and harmonies were incomprehensive to me as well. However, when I started studying Portuguese, of course Brazilian Portuguese, my point of view regarding Bossa Nova altered completely. In parallel with studying vocabulary and grammar, etc., etc., just out of curiosity, I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into this style of music and started listening to Bossa Nova songs and reading and analyzing the lyrics of these songs. So understanding the lyrics, it of course improved my vocabulary, this activity, like improved my vocabulary, and I realized a few things about this style. So understanding the lyrics, I realized how wonderfully, how poetically they were written. Even more, it helped me understand the music better, because all the feelings and the moods expressed in the lyrics were excellently expressed by the music as well. So after I learned Portuguese, the bossa nova became one of my favorite styles of music. So now I'm still listening to bossa nova, discovering new authors, new songs, and I'm still reading and analyzing the lyrics. And so I wanted to demonstrate you with this example how knowledge of a certain language can change the understanding and perception of a certain musical genre. Foreign languages not only give me access to certain musical genres, but also access to literature. So reading literature has really great impact on the improvement of foreign languages. Because the more you read in a certain language, the more you understand how rich this language is, what idioms, for example, this language has, and if it has synonyms, and in what areas, etc., etc. When I mean reading in a foreign language, I mean reading written pieces of work in the original language and not translations. It is really essential to me. Of course, I respect the work of the good translators that do their best to transfer the message of the author from the original language into the target language. However, written work cannot be translated and interpreted 100% or one-on-one, because every single language has a certain idioms or expressions and so on that cannot be translated one-on-one into the target language. So a translated piece of work is, in my opinion, still has a little bit of the interpretation of every translator. So I prefer consuming and perceiving the message of the author the way it was written, the way it was encoded, so to say, and that's why, if possible, of course, I try to read literature in the original language. Now I try to read in all the foreign languages I speak, both in the Romance languages, Spanish, French and Italian, and in the Germanic languages, English, German, Dutch, Swedish, Norwegian and Danish. I've also read something in Portuguese and Czech that I'm still improving. So reading in a foreign language is really advantageous to the improvement of the knowledge in every single foreign language. So, we've come almost to the end of our presentation. So I tried to demonstrate you, to tell you how advantageous languages were and still are in my life. So to conclude, I would like to encourage you to do the following. Study languages, improve them, practice them, communicate in them, because languages are just cool. I am really excited to have a really vivid Q&A session with you, and you are strongly encouraged to ask me questions in all the languages I speak. Thank you very much for your attention.